That's when Haile Selassie, the Emperor of Ethiopia, came here, Adam Clayton Powell Jr., who was pastor here now, that Ethiopian Coptic cross. That was my first year when civil rights and politics.
As far as I know here, you're in trouble, where it says about 30% are unemployed. That's why I'm working hard to get this surplus food here. Some of you say to me, well, I'm not like you. I'm not a congressman. I haven't got education. I haven't got work. But you're a human being. And you know what you've got? You've got in your hand the power to use your vote and to use even those few cents you get from welfare to spend them only where you want to spend them.
I'm downtown Brooklyn at Junior's Restaurant.
We say Fort Greene?
In Fort Greene.
The Fort.
With the one and only Spike Lee. We just had breakfast and talking about what's going on in the state of the race on Juneteenth Day and encouraging everybody to come out and vote.
Gotta come out and vote.
Movement going.
Gotta go.
We beat people tougher than Donald Trump. Don't bow now. Keep going.
Peace and love.
Ladies and gentlemen, the founder and president, Reverend Al Sharpton.
Y'all give me a dead mic. I know how to heal a mic. All right. Let that baby cry. This is a protest movement. We allow crying in here. Our next guest, and I'm proud to bring to the stage, has been here before and has been open to any time we reached out. He served as the 19th U.S. Secretary of Transportation, where he oversaw a historic investment of over 70,000 infrastructure projects that were designed to bridge economic and community gaps. He's a former two-term mayor of South Bend, Indiana, and a veteran of the U.S. Navy Reserve, and he has, in my opinion, been consistent and persistent on issues of human rights and on issues that concern civil rights communities. May you welcome back to National Action Network the Honorable Pete Buttigieg. Thank you for coming, Secretary.
Thank you for having me.
Let me ask you, as one that was Secretary of Transportation, we just went through a real problem in transportation in this country with the TSA workers in many ways being used as some kind of ball back and forward with the president playing games with their salaries while he tried to hold them hostage to force the Congress and the Senate to pass a bill he wanted and to stall things like the Affordable Care Act. Talk as the Secretary of Transportation about the ramifications of playing with transportation like that, travel like that, and workers that went to work despite the fact they weren't getting paid for 3 weeks while the Congress was getting paid.
That's right. Well, first of all, thank you for having me, and congratulations on 35 years of leadership in this organization. Thank you for the warm welcome. I care so much about this, not just from having worked transportation, but as a member of the traveling public. So many folks flew in order to get here. The safety of the traveling public is one of those core functions that should be beyond politics. And yet we've seen it treated as a political football. And many times they have shown their hand. For example, when the president eventually said he was going to do an executive order to make sure they got paid, he was really telling on himself, because what that means, of course, is he could have done that the whole time. And now here we are, where there's actually a bipartisan compromise to fund everything in Homeland Security except the pieces that need to be negotiated, including TSA, Coast Guard, all of those things, work through the Senate, and Speaker Johnson not just won't bring it to a vote, the House isn't even in session. So they're not even pretending to be trying to fix this problem. And the consequences is this very real human consequence for these workers who are coming to work, doing their job, keeping us safe. I see them just about every day because I'm traveling so much. And they are a credit to this country, but they deserve so much better from their leadership.
You know the legacy of the Department of Transportation and civil rights. In the past, the federal government used highways and other infrastructure places, bridges, to divide communities. If one studied in New York, many of our delegates here are not from New York, there was a builder, Robert Moses, that purposely built a highway to divide blacks and from whites and others. And you, when you were serving at DOT, Department of Transportation, had to try to deal with changing the shaping of that approach. Talk about that, because I think people don't understand. If you go to any major city, it is a political decision where they build a highway.
Absolutely.
And where they're going to build certain things. And they use that to put people in certain boxes,
right,
in many cases based on race.
Right. The way I thought about it is the purpose of transportation is to connect, right? That's what a road ought to be for. It's what a bridge ought to be for. It's what a railroad ought to be for. But there are so many cases where transportation was used to divide. I mean, just to think about the fact that in the American version of the English language, we have the phrase wrong side of the tracks. Right? That tells you everything you need to know about how a piece of infrastructure, a road, a bridge, a highway, can be used as a dividing line, sometimes very directly separating black neighborhoods from white neighborhoods. And our view when I was Secretary of Transportation was we ought to do something about that. If federal funding created or contributed to a problem, then federal funding ought to be part of the solution. And the really remarkable thing is that nobody is worse off when we do that. When we supported a vision in Atlanta to the Stitch that takes, I think it's 75 and 85, that cut right through the heart of town, put them underground. When we fund work in Toledo or Milwaukee in order to make those roads safer, everybody's better off. Certainly, black communities and other minority communities that were disadvantaged by the way that they were built are better off. But nobody's worse off when we do that. And I was astonished by how, when I started talking about this obvious, historic, documented fact about how some of these things were built the way they were, and about the effect it has on people today, not as a historical concern, but as a current, modern-day source of inequity, Some of the folks over at Fox News and other places lost their minds. It was as if I said something that you're not supposed to say. But when we took action to fix it, it helped a lot of people, and it didn't hurt anybody.
Before you served as secretary, you were mayor in South Bend, Indiana, which has a large black population. And that means you had to deal with education, policing, public safety, all of that. What did that experience teach you about how to deal with the black community?
Well, I learned so much. And as a community, we went through so much. And when you were a mayor from day one, you take on board everything, the good, the bad, the painful in your community. And learned a lot of things the hard way about how to hold a community together and empower more people. We went through very challenging economic issues. We went through very challenging issues with safety and policing. We also found ways to come out stronger. Just like a bone can be stronger in the broken places if you pay attention to healing in the right way. We learned how we could grow better as a city. And I know, people think, I think because our city is on the map for one reason, at least in football season and around tourney time, they maybe imagined that we're this kind of tidy, wealthy, homogenous college town. But when I took office, our poverty rate was around 25%. Our per capita income was about $18,000. Our unemployment was in the double digits. We were hurting. And when we came together to change that, the result was black unemployment fell by more than half. Poverty in the city and black poverty in the city fell. And it was very clear to me that my job was just to unlock the power that was already there in the community and to guide it in certain ways. And above all, it was a lot of listening. A lot of long quantity time as well as quality time in the community. And we didn't get everything right. But we made sure by the end of 2 terms that community was so much better than it had been. And I'm so proud of what's going on in that city even to this day.
I remember when you were at the Department of Transportation that you ensured that infrastructure money reached communities of color, reached disadvantaged communities. Now this administration comes in behind you and immediately send out executive orders stopping all of that, where they not only said that's not our priority, they said you can't do that.
Right.
What are the red flags that people from around the country, our delegates here, should look for in their state to know where funds have been shifted almost in the dim of night, but that has actually happened and affect our daily lives without our understanding
Yes.
why?
So this administration has adopted a seek and destroy approach to anything that even looks like it might have something to do with helping disadvantaged communities or addressing inequity. Seek and destroy. Sometimes I think of did any of you see the movie The Quiet Place? Where there's this alien invasion, and if anybody makes a sound, then boom, the alien gets you. It's kind of like that. If anywhere in a paragraph, in a description of a grant that some federal money went to improve a streetscape, if the word disadvantaged or the word equity or, God forbid, anything along the lines of a reference to racial justice, if any of that showed up anywhere, boom, they go after it and they take it away. Everybody is worse off because of this funding being clawed back. To specifically answer your question of what to be on the lookout for, there's 2 different kinds of things. One is places where they actually have pulled back the funding for a project. I was just in East Toledo. Something, I think, like $20 million to take a corridor that we identified for support because it was where so many car crashes were happening. And this disproportionately happens in disadvantaged communities. Often that means black communities. Often it means rural communities. This isn't only about race. And they got rid of the money to do it, literally for no other reason than neighborhood access and equity was in the name of the bill, the title, that funded that program. Same thing on 6th Street in Milwaukee. Same thing in Birmingham on the historic 4th Avenue, where we had dollars going into making that historic community more walkable and more safe. So be on the lookout for places where that funding has been clawed back. And most importantly, hold your elected officials' feet to the fire. And I'm especially thinking about the Republican enablers of this president, some of whom in Congress couldn't wait to co-sign the press release when we picked the project out for funding, and now are nowhere to be found when the funding's being cut. Get their attention and make them explain to you why it is that this funding was cut and why they voted for the Trump budget that cut it. But here's the other thing. Even on the projects where they left the funding alone, look at places where they are using some excuse to try to hold it up as long as there is anything in the process that concerns fairness and equity. For example, the biggest single project in the country, the Gateway Project, right here, $16 billion to take care of a 100-year-old tunnel that hundreds of thousands of people go through every day. And they just sat on it. They just hold it. The president said he was killing it. And he didn't say, oh, it's a bad design, or the tunnel's not going to work, or we had some engineering problem. It wasn't any of that. They said they were holding it because they didn't like the provisions to make sure that it was delivered in an equitable way.
Right.
And of course, that makes everybody worse off. So look for those examples where something's being held up and demand answers on why.
Now, you funded dozens of projects to reconnect communities, I'll put it that way. Communities that have been bulldozed by highways. Now this administration is canceling or delaying that work to shift money to expansions that could hurt neighborhoods again. What is your advice to communities in places like Toledo or Birmingham where these projects have been canceled now?
Well, what I will say is no news to this organization, but I'll say it anyway. The biggest thing I would urge is do not underestimate your own power. So a lot of these problems are coming from the top, but the truth is so many of the decisions about what happens with those federal dollars flow through a state Department of Transportation, or even a city or a county. Forums where you can be heard. I mean, I saw for myself how activists through the National Action Network can get heard at a city council, at a state proceeding, in those forums that are a little bit closer to home. And that is a place where you can make sure, first of all, that nobody can ignore what is happening when they take away dollars for a transportation improvement that will reconnect a neighborhood or make a place safer. But also get the attention of people who can and should do differently, because we don't have to wait. And again, I know I'm preaching to the choir, but as important as the elections are, you don't have to wait till the election to deliver a different outcome through political pressure. You know how to do this. Of course, it matters who's in charge, but it also matters how the people in charge behave. And how they behave depends in no small measure on you. They want you to feel powerless. They want you to feel like it's this steamroller, that there's nothing that can be done. But look at all the times they've backed down. Look at all the times they've changed their tune. To take an example from a different area of policy, we did a town hall in western Wisconsin. About 1,000 people came in the district of a, let's just say, disagreeable MAGA congressman who refused to do a town hall with his own constituents. So we said, okay, you don't want to do a town hall? We'll do it for you. And just the fact that we were coming to town, I think might have been what inspired him to do something completely out of character, which is, even though he is no moderate, he wound up being one of the Republicans who switched his vote to vote with Democrats on extending the subsidies for the Affordable Care Act. It was a miracle. I don't think it's because he suddenly saw the light about President Obama's health care vision. I think it's because he saw the headlights of what was coming at him in terms of
the headlights on our car.
The political force
right.
Of everybody who was coming to town. And I think that there are examples all across the country where we can, of course we need to mobilize for elections, but we can do so much more to make sure that these political leaders make better choices.
Now, one of the things that you know this organization has been in the forefront of is fighting to restore and or maintain DEI, diversity, equity, and engagement. Now, the irony of it is when George Floyd happened and his family called us in and we helped to organize and mobilize the marches and protests and worked with Senator Booker, Senator Harris around the George Floyd Justice and Policing Act. I remember that you as secretary would make sure that federal contracts went to people that weren't even being considered before, as long as they could do the work. Now this administration has come in, says stop DEI, and calls any black contractor, Latino contractor, a DEI hire.
Right.
Not based on the merit,
Right.
not based on what, since the contracts they started under your administration, they've been able to deliver. It's automatically assumed, which is racist in itself, that the only reason a black has a contract is somebody gave him a handout.
Right. And the irony of it, of course, is that this is about merit. This is about making sure that people and businesses who have been excluded get a chance to compete, get a chance to participate, get a chance to create generational wealth and deliver projects well. And we've seen this especially in transportation, going back certainly to Atlanta, whose black middle class today has a lot to do with the then mayor, Maynard Jackson, insisting that the airport project was fair in creating opportunities for black-led contracting firms. And a whole middle class arose out of that. Some of those businesses, I've met them, now they're in their second generation. They were delivering the renovations on the project that their parents or grandparents had delivered the groundbreaking on. It's incredible how that can work. And let's be very clear, this is not about, these guys in charge right now are not about merit.
Right.
I mean, look at how the Secretary of Defense intervened, overruling his own Secretary of the Army in order to block the promotion of black colonels deserving to be general officers. Does anybody seriously think that the reason a political creature like the Secretary of Defense overrules the career military on who ought to be promoted is because he believes in merit? Of course not. And we see the same thing with this contracting. This is about making sure that the wealth in this country goes to the kinds of people who can pay a $1 million membership fee at Mar-a-Lago. That's not about merit. Kinds of people who can contribute to the grand ballroom being built for dinners at the White House. That's not about merit. But that's who's profiting in this current environment. And we could be doing so much better as a country by ensuring that people get that chance to compete, get that chance to deliver. And that's true whether we're talking about making sure more folks get a chance to work in jobs, in service. By the way, meeting, of course, the same high standard, or whether we're talking about the business side. And when we do that, you wind up with more competition, better projects, and of course you wind up with more generational wealth being built in the very communities that were shut out of it for so long.
Well, one of the things I took note with you was in barriers in trucking, the CDL, pay, predatory leasing. Beyond the contracts, the trucking industry has built barriers. I mean, literally barriers. The cost of a CDL, predatory lending, low pay. Based on your time at DOT, what changes were made to protect drivers and to make trucking a real path of stability for black drivers?
Well, if COVID taught us anything, it's how much we count on truck drivers and other transportation workers for everything. When there is a problem I know supply chains is this kind of nerdy thing to talk about, but we all started to think about supply chains in different ways because of what we went through. And what we saw was there was a recruiting, I would say, emergency in terms of supporting, recruiting, and retaining the drivers that we need. And by the way, a very good opportunity for a durable and important career. And what we saw was that we as a country were leaving talent on the table. There were so many people who could do a great job, many of them, by the way, veterans. And look, if you were in my vehicle driving on the open road from Bagram to Kabul, I am quite sure that you could do an excellent job driving from Traverse City, Michigan to Chattanooga as a truck driver if you want that career. And so we found ways to deal with some of the barriers, like the cost of signing up for the training to get a CDL or to go to trucking school. And by tearing down some of those artificial barriers, while maintaining a high standard for how you qualify to be a driver, we were able to see a dramatic increase in black drivers getting a chance to be part of that career and getting a chance to contribute to our supply chains.
Let me ask you about voting rights. What role do you believe that national figures like yourself should play in defending the right to vote today? We see voting rights under siege. This is not hyperbole. We have a president that has said that we want to require people to establish first birthright citizenship. No longer goes. We want to require ID of birth, of a birth certificate, and passports. Passport, as I said with Vice President Harris, costs up to $200 if you don't have a passport. Many of us don't have a passport because we ain't going nowhere. We don't need one. And then many people with birth certificates, I think Ms. Harris said, suppose if it's a woman who gets married, uses her married name. And I'm saying if you are married, I would say 85, 90% of us wouldn't know where our birth certificates are. And some that are even older in the South didn't get a birth certificate. So how do you view this blatant, in my opinion, attempt to stifle the vote, particularly in communities that did not have the same economic advantages? So why would you be buying something like a passport if you were not planning on going anywhere?
Mm-hmm. And as you know well, part of what they're doing is making it impossible to do things like use your driver's license to register to vote.
Right.
Think about what that means for so many people who that's the main way you would identify yourself. Yeah, maybe you can't dig up a birth certificate. Maybe your name, a married woman, your name is different on the birth certificate than it is on your license or your voter registration. Maybe you don't have a passport. And we're talking about eligible U.S. citizens whose right to vote should never be interfered with. Just a few weeks ago, we were in Selma. I saw you last, I think, at the
right.
Edmund Pettus Bridge. And seeing, as we participated in that annual commemoration, what people went through, what people fought for, to be able to vote, the blood that was spilled on that bridge, because people wanted to be able to vote. But one of the things I was reflecting on the flight home was that back then, too, there was never a law that said you can't vote. They didn't say it in that way. They just found ways to stop people from voting.
That's right. That's
and
right.
so just because you get to vote on paper doesn't mean you actually have that right if they're throwing up all of these barriers. And we've gotten so used to it, even just in the way it is now, let alone how much worse they're getting ready to make it. For example, I would argue, if you have to wait more than 1 hour in line to vote, do you really have a right to vote that's being enforced? You shouldn't have to wait more than an hour to cast your vote. Ultimately, in the long run, I think this may not be something that we can fully resolve until we have a specific constitutional protection of that right to vote. And we shouldn't be afraid to try. But we don't have until then to act now. And so I think the important thing now is to make clear just how many people are going to lose their rights. And if you really care about election integrity, and that's the phrase they always use, right? Election integrity. If you really care about election integrity, ask yourself what integrity an election has if millions of qualified, eligible voters who want their voice to be heard are being blocked by new barriers that you put in their way.
I'm almost out of time, but I want to ask you this. As a veteran, when I introduced you, I talked about you were a veteran. You've called out the administration for launching this war in Iran. and using fallen troops photos in fundraising. You've also warned international tensions are hitting families at the pump and the grocery store. How do you connect what's happening overseas to what people are feeling at home?
Well, first thing I think about is those troops who are overseas. I know exactly what it feels like to get on that gray-tailed military transport plane and be on your way into a war zone, and how important it is to be able to believe that the people who sent you there only did that because they had no other choice. You do not put American troops' lives on the line unless you have no other good alternative. But look at what they did. We're not in this war because we had to be. We're in this war because he wanted to be. After specifically promising not to launch these kinds of wars. And what is the result? It's not just that it destabilized the Middle East. It's not just that it's created all these problems for countries over there. It's that we're feeling it right now in the most immediate personal ways, even if no one you know is in the military. If you want a house, your mortgage went up because interest rates went up because of this war. Every time you fill up, your tank of gas got more expensive because of this war. The price of food this summer will be more expensive because fertilizer is more expensive because of this war. They are asking for an extra $500 billion for the defense budget. That is thousands of dollars for every household in this country. So we were paying directly for this. And what did we get in return? Is the world any safer? No. America is less trusted than before. When you need trust, by the way, you don't just need your allies to trust you, which is going to take a generation to reestablish. It's actually kind of important that your enemies trust that you will do what you say you're going to do. And we don't even have that anymore, which makes it that much harder to negotiate with adversaries.
Right.
And by the way, let's be very clear about what it means that this negotiation's happening now, this ceasefire. The president a month ago said unconditional surrender and regime change. Those were the goals. Regime change did not happen. We went from Ayatollah Khamenei to Ayatollah Khamenei Jr. And we went from unconditional surrender to negotiating off a 10-point plan written by the Iranians.
That he said he had wiped out.
Yeah. What do you think the world thinks of that? The next time we're going to come around saying, put your lives on the line to stand with us in some big effort. It is making America weaker, and the American people don't want this. The good news, if we can find good news in all of this, is that a lot of people have been woken up.
Yeah.
And we got to keep that going. But very importantly, when we encounter somebody who has been along for the ride with so many things that we consider to be grotesque abuses, because they are, when they start having doubts, think about how hard that is. I mean, we all know how hard it is to change your mind. Many of us have spouses who remind us how important it is to change your mind and say so when you were wrong about something, and it is one of the hardest things in the world. So if somebody is ready to take that step and at least talk to us and maybe do something differently, the message cannot be, I told you so. The message has to be, welcome aboard, what else can we do together?
What do you think, given the grave circumstances that we both agree that we're facing in some areas, what does the Democratic Party need to do to be able to be successful? Yes, we're angry, but anger does not mean everybody's going to the polls.
Yeah.
And it doesn't mean that we're going to sustain it till November. And I always say that you got to turn people on before you can turn them out. And what does the Democratic Party need to do to really appeal to people that have given up and feel like no matter what I do, they're going to do what they're going to do anyway?
Yeah. I think it is vitally important that we fight back the temptation to be about restoring everything to the old way. Because the reality is, if our economic and our political and our social systems were serving us well, we wouldn't be here. Right? All of that is what led to all of this. And so we have to make clear, of course we want to see an end to the current regime, but what we really need to make clear is what we would be doing instead, that it doesn't have to be this way, and your everyday life could be better. When you get up in the morning, you can have a glass of clean, safe drinking water and get in a vehicle and go on a road that is in good condition to a job where one job is enough. And on the way there, drop your kids off at quality public education that is well funded, and come home knowing that you have health care that you can actually afford and get to a house that you can actually afford to live in. We could have those nice things. Nothing is stopping us but ourselves and our leadership. That's why we need better leadership. Of course, the other guys are bad, but that's not all there is to it. We are here to make your everyday life better than it was.
Let me ask you this, and I know the clock says I'm overtime. When you ran for president, you met me and we went up, well-publicized, lunch at Sylvia's restaurant in Harlem. Just so my calendar is clear, should I be reserving a table at Sylvia's? Are you gonna run again?
You save me a seat, I'll be there.
All right. All right. Secretary of Transportation, Pete Buttigieg. All right. One of the issues that we're extremely concerned about is criminal justice and where we are with policing, where we are with false and flawed incarceration, criminal justice reform, and where we are on many of the legislative issues, including the George Floyd Justice and Policing Act. One who has worked diligently in this area, who's a member of the House Judiciary Committee, and who has taken time to be with us today to give some remarks from his work in the House Judiciary Committee. Let us welcome the Congressman from the Maryland's 4th Congressional District, Congressman Glenn Ivey.
Thank you. Rev, before you go, I wanted to just ask y'all, can y'all give a big round of applause for Reverend Al Sharpton? We ought to be standing up to thank him for the outstanding work that he's done over the decades. He won't remember this. In 1987, I was working for Congressman John Conyers. Y'all remember him? And he came down to meet with the congressman about issues going on in New York, criminal justice issues. And you were in a tracksuit then. You weighed a little more then, but you know what? I had a whole lot more hair then too, but you've been dynamic and dedicated through the decades. So thank you so much for all that you've done and continue to do. How y'all doing today? National Action Network, congratulations on your 35th here. And 35 more coming, right? All right. Look, the George Floyd Act, as you heard earlier, Kamala Harris introduced that on the Senate side 5 years ago after his tragic murder in Minnesota. And we've reintroduced that in the House today. I had a chance to take it over. Sheila Jackson Lee passed away. She'd been the lead sponsor, and they passed it on to me. Hakeem Jeffries picked me out and said, I want you to take the lead on this. Y'all like Hakeem Jeffries too? Doing great work. And you know what? He's going to be a great Speaker of the House, isn't he? It's coming. It's coming. It's coming. I went out to Minnesota back in January, and it was after Renee Good had been shot, before Alex Preddy had been killed. And you know, that's just about a mile away from where George Floyd was killed, right around the corner. Same stuff, different people, same uniforms, kinda, same injustice. We got the same solution. So when we were out there in Minnesota and those guys were running around, remember when the vice president told them they've got absolute immunity? They can't be held accountable? I made sure I went out to Minnesota and I said, you know what? Oh yeah, you can be held accountable, and you're gonna be held accountable, and you know what? They're gonna prosecute it in the state instead of the federal court, and you know what's good about that? No pardons for sale from the President of the United States. If you get convicted in state court, you can't be pardoned by the President, and I guess Derek Chauvin's gonna have some new cellmates, right? So we got to make sure we push that forward. The Department of Justice has been withholding the evidence that should go to the state prosecutors. We got to make sure we keep pushing for that. I did a letter. I got 58 of my colleagues to join in on the letter and say, turn the evidence over. We know you all ain't going to do it. Let Keith Ellison and those guys do it. But we also have to look at the new piece of this too, and that's ICE. And I'll just say one thing quick about that. Those guys are out of control totally. We need a total revamp. Noam getting fired was not enough. We need the mask to come off. We need the body cameras on. We need the end of roving patrols. We need the end of racial profiling. There's enough of it. We've got to shut it down. So we got to keep fighting for that. But I got to say this too. We talked a little bit about voting issues earlier today. And we've got a lot of challenges coming. We have it every election. We want to make sure we have poll watchers, people out to make sure things are going smoothly. Got a new challenge this year that I think we need to be ready for. That's ICE showing up at polling places. We got to be ready for that. And remember when they rolled out the National Guard, like in D.C. and Los Angeles? They might do that again. And they're not going to just do it generally. If they bring them out, they might take them to polling places. So in addition to us doing the usual poll watching that we do, we've got to be extra involved, start to finish, making sure we're keeping our eyes on whoever's out there, whether it's just the usual crazy MAGA guys doing all their tricks, or ICE and the National Guard. Are we ready for that? Are we ready to do it? We need all hands on deck. National Action Network has been outstanding in doing it. All hands on deck, right? We got some Divine Nine in here? Yeah, all right. We need y'all too. We need that network. We got the faith community involved too. I know they're in the lunch next door, but y'all ready too? We need all hands on deck. And what that also means is part of what happened in 2024, a lot of the young folk didn't get the messages that we were trying to send out. We've been doing it through traditional routes. You know how they do that thing where they wait till the last week of October and they start running TV commercials and act like that's enough? It's not enough. We got to get out and reach out to these young folks where they are, and we can't wait till the last minute, right? We got to get on it soon. And the issue here is trusted voices. They don't always trust the voices that they hear, but they know you. They know grandma. They know cousin. We need all of us talking to all of our family and our friends all across the country. You up for that? We've got to do it. Now, one of the things to remember on that front, because I know a lot of times we used to rely on television. I've got 6 kids. And no, I did not play in the NBA. I tried, but, I was just too short, But anyway, but look, a lot of the young folks, my youngest is 26. He doesn't watch TV. So when they run political ads on TV, he doesn't see them. He doesn't listen to the radio. So the radio ads don't work. He doesn't read the newspaper. So if you put an ad in the newspaper, he's not going to see it. And social media, well, we got to make sure we're on the right social media. I thought I was doing something when I got on Facebook, but they started chuckling, man. He's like, Facebook been gone for 10 years, Dad. What you talking about? We got to find them where they are, and we got to reach out to them person to person. Remember that old song, Person to Person? Remember Sly Stone, Everyday People? We've got to make sure we're reaching out to the everyday people everywhere that they are. Last point I want to make. When you talk to folks, make sure you talk about the affordability piece, and you've heard that over and over today, right? We want to make sure people have a roof over their heads, food on the table, money to turn the lights on. We've got to let people know the reason all that's been undercut is Trump's been raising prices on everything, right? He said he was going to come in and lower prices, but what did he do? They went up. The first thing, he started this war. Before he got in office, Biden, it was like $2.90 something for gas. I'm down a little farther south. It's over $4 now. Grocery prices went up. Why is that? Because of those stupid tariffs that he put on all over the country, all over the world. So food coming in, gets the Trump tax, makes it cost more. Electricity prices went up. Y'all got high electric bills up here in New York? I thought so. But he did that too. And you know why? We had the green power about to come online, so we're going to increase the supply of electricity. He blocked it. He paid $1 billion so that they couldn't roll it out. Why would he do that? Because he's got billionaire friends he's trying to hook up. Right? Right? So we got to make sure we deal with that piece. Also, there's got to be accountability. Got to be accountability. Elon Musk, when we take the House back, the first subpoena that goes out should be to Elon Musk. Second subpoena, I want to find out what those folks got in exchange for that $400 million airplane. Remember that one? And don't forget the $4 billion in crypto that they gave him. That's not right. And then the last piece that we got to deal with, Rev mentioned criminal justice. Think about these presidential pardons he's been giving out. I'm sorry, he's not giving them out. He's been selling them. I mean, you hate to say it, but it's pretty straightforward, isn't it? They come up with $1 million. And you know the worst part about that, like all the January 6th guys that stormed it, 5 cops died during that. Now think about if you'd had a crowd like this that looks like us, that went and raided the Capitol like that, and 5 cops died. Would y'all have gotten pardons? I don't think so. Matter of fact, you would have been lucky to get to the jail, right? And the other part about the pardons is when they pardon these guys, he's pardoning people also who committed fraud against folks, took their money. When they get pardoned, they don't have to pay restitution. They don't have to pay it back. So we shouldn't have been surprised, though, because the guy that they sent to the White House, he's a felon. He tried to act like he's not, but he's a felon. And remember, most felons, they can't get in public housing. He's in the White House. So you know he's getting special treatment. But guess what? 2026, we're taking the House and the Senate back. 2028, we take the White House back. Let's send him back, get him back in the criminal justice system, and move forward with getting us back on track. Keep up the great work. God bless, and have a great day.
All right. Give it up, Congressman Ivey. One of the things that I've learned down through the years is there are those that have paid a price and have opened doors, and their wisdom you can't learn in a book. One of the misnomers of Western civilization is that they teach some of us that they have put in a servitude situation to reject hearing from those that travel the road before us. It is always wise to talk to somebody that's been down the road that you're traveling